Maeve Callaghan's black mare screamed as the first flaming plank collapsed across the ranch gate, sparks leaping like red ghosts into the moonless Wyoming sky. Maeve leaned low over the saddle horn, braid whipping her face, smoke gnawing her lungs. Behind her, the Callaghan barn, her father's last possession worth a nickel, roared and crackled like it had been waiting 23 years to burn. And just beyond the flames, she could see them. Cyrus Blackthorn's riders, coats as dark as their reputation, scattershot across the valley. They weren't chasing the fire. They were chasing her. Because in the saddlebag at Maeve's hip lay the one thing Cyrus needed to swallow the entire Callaghan spread before sunup, a stamped contract of betrothal, binding Maeve to his only son, Cole. She had signed it an hour ago. Now she was running for her life. 1 week earlier, the Callaghan ranch was down to dust and fences held together by prayers. A 3-year drought had wrung the grasses brittle. You could snap them like wishbones. In the clapboard kitchen, Samuel Callaghan, thinning hair, lungs full of sand, slid an oil-stained ledger across the table. "Bank wants $92 by month's end," he said, voice cracked like dry creek bed. "Or they auction every acre your ma's daddy left us." Maeve's stomach pitched. Her mother was buried under the cottonwood near the South Corral. Losing the land felt like burying her twice. "Pa, that's money we don't have." "Some folks do," he said, and tilted his chin toward the distant ridge where a black manor sat like a vulture. Cyrus Blackthorn, railroad tycoon, cattle lord, rumored gunslinger long retired, had spent the last decade buying every ranch he could see from that balcony. Those who sold called him a savior. Those who refused called him the devil. That afternoon, Cyrus sent a letter sealed in crimson wax. 10 words. "Your debt erased if Maeve Callaghan weds my son Cole." Maeve reread the page until the letters bled together. She knew of Cole, second-hand stories whispered in saloons, fast with a revolver, faster with a temper, a man who carried 4 notches in the grip of his Colt and never spoke of them. A Blackthorn in all respects but one. No one had ever seen him smile. Samuel twisted his hat in work-rough hands. "It's your choice, Maeve, but I can't watch this place go under." Maeve slipped the letter into her apron. Her pulse hammered so loudly she wondered whether her father could hear it. The fact was simple. Cyrus had boxed them in neater than any stock pen. Say no, and the bank took the ranch. Say yes, and the devil slipped a ring on her finger. That night she walked the fence line beneath hard, indifferent stars, thinking of her mother singing lullabies in that same dark. By dawn, her boots were soaked with dew and resolve. She would marry Cole Blackthorn, save the land even if it cost her heart. Cyrus insisted on a public engagement supper in Laramie's Grand Hotel. Crystal lamps, velvet drapes, 40 curious townsfolk pretending not to stare. Maeve wore her mother's calico. Cyrus's wife was 10 years dead, so Cole arrived alone, pallid as marble in a black frock coat. When he shook Maeve's hand, she felt the cold of it through her gloves. His eyes, Winter Lake blue, didn't hold menace exactly, more like loneliness so deep it had forgotten daylight. Cyrus raised a glass. To alliances, and to the future. Cole didn't drink. He barely touched his steak. When they were pushed out on the ballroom floor for a waltz, he whispered without meeting her gaze, "I'm sorry." Maeve missed the next step and nearly trod his boots. "Sorry? For what?" "For everything my father does," he said, "and for what he's going to do." Before she could press, the music ended, the crowd clapped, and Cyrus clamped a possessive hand on Cole's shoulder. The tycoon's smile was thin as barbed wire. That night, Maeve found an envelope slipped under her hotel door. Inside lay a single sentence in Cole's precise hand. "Meet me at dawn by the hanging rock. Come alone." She should have been afraid, but another emotion won out. Curiosity ripe with dread. The ridge was painted gold when Maeve rode up. Cole waited, coat fluttering in the dawn breeze, the brim of his hat shadowing those glacier eyes. In his hand, a sheaf of papers. "Cyrus doesn't intend to honor the agreement," he said without preamble. "Whether you marry me or not, he aims to seize the deed the moment your father's back is turned. This," he shook the pages, "is proof. Ledgers, forged notes, bribes. Enough to hang him twice." "Why show me?" Maeve asked, throat tight. She noted he still hadn't stepped closer than a few paces, as though afraid he might break something delicate. "Because you're brave enough to fight him, and I'm tired of being his shadow." Cole's jaw ticked. "Help me stop him, Maeve. Then you walk free. No wedding band, no debt." A coyote yipped across the valley like a warning bell. Maeve stared at the man she had sworn to loathe, realizing he was handing her the key to her own salvation. But there was a catch. "If Cyrus discovers you betrayed him, I'm dead already," Cole said, almost gently. They conspired in secret. Maeve hid the incriminating ledgers beneath the false bottom of her hope chest. Cole fed her each new scrap of information, a bribed bank manager, a sheriff on the take. The plan: deliver the lot to Judge Whitaker in Cheyenne, a circuit judge known for hating Blackthorn's rail monopoly. One sworn affidavit and Cyrus's empire would crumble. But on the eve of their departure, someone snuffed the lantern in Maeve's room and hissed, "He'll bury you like he buried the others." When the light flared again, her quilt was slashed end to end, a warning. Maeve's lungs seized with terror, yet she kept silent. She told herself danger was the price of courage. She didn't tell Cole. She feared he would call off the plan and strap her with safety. They set out after dark 3 nights later, Maeve with the ledgers, Cole scouting ahead. They meant to cross Callaghan land to the stage road. That was when Cyrus set the barn ablaze. The smell of kerosene reached Maeve before the crack of gunfire. She tore through smoke, to find her father half-conscious near the corral, head bleeding where a rifle butt had clipped him. "Ride, Maeve," he coughed. "Don't you let him take what's ours." So she had thrust the precious papers into her saddlebag, swung onto the mare, and galloped for the canyon cut while Blackthorn riders torched everything she loved. Back now, present tense, heart-battering ribs like angry fists, Maeve left the burning gate behind and plunged into Chaparral Gulch. Shots rang, hooves thundered. Then, out of the blackness, a rope snaked around Maeve's waist, yanked her from the saddle. She slammed dirt, breath blasted away. Cole's face appeared above hers. "Shortcut," he gasped, hauling her to her feet. "Move!" They scrambled into a narrow ravine too tight for horses. Water glimmered at their ankles. Overhead, riders cursed. Cole pressed a finger to Maeve's lips and listened until hoofbeats faded. Together, they slumped against a boulder slick with moss. Maeve finally wept, not for fear, but for the barn, for the cottonwood grove, for a childhood swallowed by flames. Cole's hand found hers, hesitant, thumb brushing the char on her knuckles. "I swear," he whispered, "he will answer for tonight." Something inside Maeve, some iron filament, sparked at his vow. At dawn, they reached Fort Halleck, a cavalry outpost turned whistle-stop. Cole coaxed the telegraph clerk, a childhood friend, to wire Judge Whitaker. Urgent evidence. Meet the noon train tomorrow. Blackthorn crimes. Then they collapsed in an abandoned line shack, slept back-to-back like wary wolves. Nightfall brought snow out of season, ragged flakes swirling under the shack door. Maeve shivered beside the small stove. Cole draped his coat across her shoulders without comment. In the hush, truth spilled easier than warmth. "My mother died birthing me," he said. "Father never forgave the world. He looked at me and saw a debt." Maeve studied the scar peeking from under his collarbone, pale, jagged. "He do that?" "He wanted to teach me how it feels to bleed." Cole's mouth twisted into something like a smile, but wrong-shaped. "I learned faster than he liked." Maeve touched the scar's edge, felt gooseflesh bloom under her fingertips. She realized she no longer feared Cole Blackthorn. She feared a world that could twist a boy into the rumors she had heard. In the morning, Judge Whitaker replied, "Arrive Cheyenne by dawn. We'll convene hearing." Relief tasted like sunlight. They bought 2 cheap rail tickets, kept heads low. The train pealed its whistle, and Cyrus stepped onto the platform. How he'd tracked them, Maeve never learned. He moved through the crowd with leisurely menace, 30 yards and closing. Cole's hand found hers again, but this time it squeezed in apology. "Trust me," he murmured, and then he pulled away. Cole strode to his father, exchanged 4 terse words Maeve couldn't hear. Cyrus's eyes bored through her. In moments, riders closed in, blocking every exit. Maeve's lungs froze. Cole leaned to Cyrus, nodded. The riders parted. Father and son walked side by side toward the telegraph office. Betrayal is a hollow sound, Maeve thought, because all the noise is inside your chest. She felt it echo now, ugly and vast. They locked her in a vacant boxcar, wrists bound. Through the slats, she watched Cyrus pace the siding, gloating to his foreman. "Proof? Evidence? Nothing but fairy tales. My boy saw sense." Maeve dropped her head to her knees. The ledgers were gone. Cole had filched them during the distraction. He'd handed everything to the devil. Her sacrifice, her trust, her mother's land. All surrendered by the only man who might have stood with her. The train lurched. They were moving west, back toward Laramie, toward the Blackthorn Manor that looked like a mausoleum. Maeve's tears dried to salt. Around midnight, the boxcar hissed to a stop in open prairie. No town in sight. The door slammed aside. Cole stood there holding a lantern and a length of rope. "Good evening, Miss Callaghan," he drawled for the benefit of 2 hired guns flanking him. They lifted her down, still hogtied. Cole yanked the rope like a cruel handler. "You sure the boss wants her alive?" One guard smirked. "Alive," Cole confirmed, "but scared's allowed." They trudged into the darkness. Moonless sky, smell of sage. After 100 paces, the guards paused to light cigarettes, and Cole slit both throats before the matches flared out. Maeve's scream strangled in her gag. Cole cut her ropes, pressed a bloody finger to her lips. "I'm sorry. I had to make him believe." He gestured to a nearby mesquite. The saddlebags with the ledgers hung from a branch. "I gave Father fakes," he whispered. "Couldn't tell you. He watches everything. But he'll know soon enough, so we run now." Maeve trembled. "I thought you betrayed me." "I had to betray you," he said, "for a minute, so I could betray him forever." She searched his face for deceit and found only exhaustion, and something else fragile as dawn. Trust came harder this time, but it came. They mounted fresh horses, vanished into the night before the corpse smoke cleared. A blizzard crawled over the Medicine Bow peaks like a white beast. The railroad southward was buried. Telegraph lines snapped. Maeve and Cole slogged the toll road through Devil's Gate Pass, wind screeching across the granite walls. They were 3 miles from Cheyenne when the drifts got chest high. They sheltered in an abandoned toll house. Cole's hands shook so badly he couldn't strike a match for the stove. Maeve cupped them, rubbed until blood warmed skin. She realized how small a line remained between enemy and ally, between stranger and something dangerously dear. Snow hammered the roof. Each gust felt like the mountain taking a breath to swallow them. Cole produced 2 bullets from his coat, splintered, powder spoiled by damp. "Every time I reload," he said softly, "I think about using one on him." He didn't need to specify him. Maeve thought of her own father, wounded, maybe dying under the cottonwood. "Killing Cyrus won't heal what he's done," she said. "But stopping him will," Cole replied. "You still have the ledgers?" She patted the oilcloth bundle under her blouse. "Closer than my heartbeat." Cole's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but still not quite. The storm howled. He finally slept, head in her lap, and Maeve kept watch with a shotgun across her knees until dawn cracked silver over the pass. Cheyenne's courthouse loomed like salvation. Judge Whitaker, pale and furious over missed telegraphs, convened an emergency hearing. Maeve swore her testimony. Bank managers wilted under cross-examination. Cole produced signatures proving Cyrus burned rivals' fields and forged deeds. Word spread like wildfire. Ranchers packed the gallery, some cheering, some spitting curses. Blackthorn's reach ran long. The judge recessed until afternoon to deliberate. Maeve stood on the courthouse steps, breathing the cold air, feeling an unfamiliar weightlessness, hope. Cole joined her, gaze lost in cloudy sky. "When this is over," he said, "they'll hang him. They might hang me for the things I did in his name." "The judge granted you immunity," Maeve reminded gently. "Immunity won't wash blood from my hands." Maeve slipped her fingers into his. "Then let me help you wash it." The look he gave her, astonishment turned slowly into wonder, was the first unguarded expression she had seen break across those winter eyes. And then a rifle cracked. A bullet ripped Cole's coat, flinging him backward. Maeve spun. Cyrus stood 50 yards away in the middle of the street, shotgun leveled, eyes manic. "You think papers and fancy words can steal what's mine?" he roared. "I built an empire on fear." Deputies drew revolvers. Townsfolk screamed. But Cyrus kept his barrel trained on Maeve. "Drop them ledgers, girl, or your lover bleeds out." Cole tried to stand. Blood seeped at his side. Maeve's mind raced. She raised the oilcloth bundle high, then hurled it onto the courthouse steps. Pages fluttered like dying birds. Cyrus laughed, a bark of triumph, strode forward. As he bent to snatch the documents, the ground itself snapped shut. The wooden trapdoor to the judge's coal chute, left unlatched by a janitor that morning. Cyrus plunged 6 feet into darkness, shotguns skittering away. Deputies swarmed. Cole collapsed. Maeve dropped beside him, pressed shawl to the wound. "Stay with me," she begged. He winced a smile. "A twist worthy of dime novels," he rasped. "Did you plan that trapdoor?" She laughed through tears. "Judge Whitaker did. Said villains fall by their own weight." Cyrus Blackthorne hung 2 months later on a gray spring morning. Maeve did not attend. She was too busy hammering new boards onto the skeletal frame of the Callaghan barn. The railroad agreed to triple the drought compensation once Blackthorne's stock plummeted. The ranch was solvent, the grass already greener than Maeve remembered. She paused beneath the reborn roof, smelling fresh pine and rain on the wind. Footsteps crunched behind her. Cole leaned on the doorway, arm still in a sling. He'd faced tribunal for his father's crimes, walked out free but burdened. He had spent weeks helping rebuild every ranch Blackthorne had ruined. Sun had warmed his skin. Lines of grief looked softer now. "Barn looks good," he said. "Needs paint. I brought some." He lifted a tin. Scarlet red, the same shade as Cyrus's wax seal. They both laughed at the dark irony. They painted until twilight. Crimson boards, white trim. When the last stroke dried, Maeve climbed the hayloft ladder and sat in the open doorway, legs dangling above the pasture. Cole joined her, silent a while. "Town's talking," he said finally. "They wonder if you'll keep the Callaghan name, or take another." Maeve arched a brow. "They wonder, do they?" He flushed, the faintest rose on winter cheeks. "I once asked for your hand on Father's orders. I'd like to ask again, of my own." Maeve studied the ribboning sunset, gold fading to lavender, and thought how life could tilt from tragedy to promise within a single season. She heard her mother's lullabies in the wind, felt her father hammering nails below, smelled new hay. She turned to Cole. "We built this barn with our own hands," she said. "Seems fair we build a future the same way." He drew a breath, perhaps to ask if that was yes. Maeve answered by kissing him, slow, certain. Below, the ranch lights flickered on. Somewhere a meadowlark sang, dusk settling like a blanket over the valley. And in that hush between day and night, Maeve Callaghan, no, not yet a Blackthorne, but something newly, fiercely her own, felt the land breathe with her heartbeat, alive again. Weeks later, as wedding plans scattered like confetti through Laramie, a parcel arrived with no return address, an oilskin cylinder containing the charred remains of the original betrothal contract Maeve had signed under duress. Around it, a single black feather. Maeve showed it to Cole. He shook his head, mystified. They burned the feather in the hearth, watched the smoke spiral. Outside, thunder rolled over the ridge where Blackthorne Manor once glared, now a blackened husk struck by lightning the night Cyrus died. Some said the devil had come to collect. Others swore the land itself rejected him. Maeve tucked the last ash of the feather into the soil beneath the cottonwood, whispered a prayer, and walked back to the house where light and laughter waited. Because some stories don't end when the villain falls. They begin, out of dust, through fire into something as wild and enduring as the West itself. And anyone listening round a YouTube campfire had best keep their eyes on the horizon. There's always another rider, another secret, another twist in the trail. But for Maeve and Cole tonight, the only plot that mattered was the one that still belonged to the Callaghans. 300 sun-drenched acres of promise, finally safe, finally home. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe to support this channel.